We might as well let everyone listen to the conversation we're having, because we were just doing impressions of Meghan Markle and her pal, the one with the mad noddy head and the smile. But I actually saw her performing like on stage, that girl, because she looks like completely and utterly like a nodding dog, really, doesn't she?
Well, it's the interview that's been described on social media as the most annoying interview of all time.
I agree. It is so annoying, the two of them. But your woman, whatever her name is, the interviewee, she's actually like really dynamic when she's on. She seems to be doing some sort of a stage thing. I don't know how I fell upon that. She's on my feed now, I'd say. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, she can actually speak. She can,
So who's Meghan Markle in this circumstance, and who's the nodding dog interviewee?
Well, I was doing the nodding dog thing. Yes, I was doing my impression there a minute ago.
So therefore, I'm Meghan Markle.
Yeah, you are.
Right.
The princess of Sussex.
Go on, not on.
So now... We'll get on to this story now. We're obviously here, by the way, everybody, to talk about Sean McGovern. We've lots to talk about there. But before we do, I wanted to ask you, how did you get on in prime time last night? I believe you were runners on the television.
Yeah, but I mean, that's
making a show of us.
No, because I have been on it before. Obviously, there's two ways you can be on the kind of podium.
Yeah,
and I'll show you the text I did before saying, do I need to wear shoes?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I said, do I need to break out my suit?
Yeah.
Not one of my suits.
Yeah,
my suit.
Yeah.
And she said no, but then it changed. So I was sitting down, and so
what did you have on?
I had on a nice pair of Adidas with comfortable soles.
And did you have a suit on with that?
I had a shirt on and black trousers.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, but it was...
you didn't do that on television, did you?
Well, I mean, I've had various texts from my mother and other people that are related to me saying I look great.
Okay.
So it's okay.
Right. Well, no, okay. If your mother's happy with it.
Yeah. And it's only the let's say the cruel people working in the Sunday World who focused in on the runners. A lot of other people focused in on my articulacy and
runners are fine once you don't wear them with black trousers, obviously. But no, that was good. So obviously you were on after a busy bloody day yesterday, and I'm still going on holidays, by the way. I am actually going. So this is it now. This is the end of it. But you flew down to Court to see, and just about made it. What is going on in this city? It's not working anymore. The traffic is horrific.
No, I mean, there was very, very heavy traffic. And I mean, Sean McGovern obviously landed in Baldonnel Airport, was brought pretty much straight to the Special Criminal Court. There was an extra sitting.
So he was blue lights, you weren't?
He was blue lights. Yeah. But even then it took a bit of time. But it was a fascinating court appearance. I mean, these court appearances are very brief. There's the lawyers speak. Sean McGovern was brought in. I'd say there was 40 or 50 guards. I mean, it was very heavily attended in that way. There was some members of the public down the back. I believe they were probably people that were known to Noel Kirwan rather than Sean McGovern's, family or friends.
Big moment for those people.
Big moment for those people. So
December 2016, he was murdered, shot dead in the driveway of his home, and he slumped on his partner's, and he died in her arms, essentially. A horrific murder.
An horrific murder. And Sean McGovern was stood up, and during the course of proceedings, that charge was read to him. He was charged with 5 offences. So one of them is basically what's called the common law murder of Noel Kirwan, which is basically a standard murder charge. But there was 4 other charges under what's called the anti-gangland legislation. Some of these are very long, but they're basically 2 of them are to do with the murder of Noel Kirwan, and 2 of them are to do with a conspiracy to murder James Mago Gately. He was charged with directing the surveillance operation of James Mago Gately, and also being involved, facilitating the murder conspiracy against Mago Gately. And he also faces 2 charges in relation to Noel Kirwan of a similar type.
Now, the Mago Gately conspiracy to murder him is in 2017.
Yeah.
At which point Sean McGovern is in Dubai.
Which, yes, because it does mention both inside and it actually, the conspiracy charge is over a number of months rather than a very specific day, obviously. So,
and during the sentencing of Imre Arakas, the Estonian hitman who came into Ireland to carry that out, he pleaded guilty actually to conspiracy. And there was other cases around the Peadar Keating, obviously, and other cases around that. But we did hear during the sentencing of Imre Arakas that a phone contained messages from, they were encrypted messages, and one was from somebody identified as Knife, and the other was from somebody identified as Bon. And there was messages going to and fro. He was telling them, those two phones, what he planned to do, including that he thought he could get him with one bullet to the head.
Yeah.
He was going to go up close to him at the apartment in the north, and he was going to sort of hide and wait until he opened the door and then go up behind him and shoot him, was one of his options.
Yeah.
And obviously Arakas was caught coming into the country. He was put under surveillance from the minute he came into the country and had a rucksack and a lot of outdoor equipment. He was known to put would-be victims under surveillance for long periods of time, even to sort of hide out in the woods and watch them. A sinister character. But that's interesting because McGovern is at that point gone. He's in Ireland at the time Noel Duca Kerwin is murdered, and we understand he left for Dubai just in the immediate aftermath of that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the charge does refer to both the conspiracy occurring both within the state and without the state. So that's laid down.
Outside the state.
Yes. So that probably covers that range. So Sean McGovern was brought up. He was wearing a green t-shirt, a green tracksuit, white runners. Actually was trying to sort of lean over. I thought I might...
the level of detail people like to have. Somebody described them as sliders. Were they not sliders?
They could have been.
With socks?
Well, actually, well,
even worse than your appearance on prime time.
Well, I was trying to lean out and I thought I have to get a good look at these, and then I thought, no, it's probably not that type of moment.
I know, you don't think it's too much journalistic either to want to know what sort of shoes somebody's wearing.
No, but he was, he looked tanned, he looked healthy.
Did he?
His hair was shaven, but he looked kind of a little bit more hair than normal. I would have thought.
He looked like he had more hair than he had before.
Well, I think so.
Yeah, because there's a lot of hair transplants go on with some of those guys.
Yeah.
So,
but not an imposing figure. Quite a small,
slight.
Gave no expression, had a good look around the courtroom.
Did he? Confidently?
I wouldn't say confidently, very stony faced, I would say. Not a tall guy, looks quite smaller, I would have thought, in height than in some of the pictures. So, yeah, it was a big moment, but not a big presence standing there. I think I remember being in the Special Criminal Court and you saw Jerry Hutch. It's kind of... But Sean McGovern, nonetheless, you can see in the range of charges what the state's case are going to be. That he had a directing role in in these crimes, and these crimes are obviously connected with the Hutch Kinahan feud.
So he looks healthy and well. He's been in custody, of course, as far as we know, in the UAE since October of last year.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure prisons normally in the UAE are fantastically healthy places to be, unless you are given a status, which can happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was... we've spoken before about Detained in Dubai. It's one of these campaign groups that based in London.
Statement out today.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a very interesting statement actually they make. And they're basically saying, look, McGovern has been extradited, but what they're saying is this is an attempt to kind of polish the reputation of the UAE and to get...
exercise,
the PR exercise. Now, not obviously from an Irish perspective, that's not the case. It's not a PR exercise. This is a very important piece of criminal justice. But from the point of view of the UAE, she's saying they don't care about these sort of criminals. This is just, they want to get him out because he's too high profile. But Exactly. So they're saying it's an arbitrary system, and I would imagine in prison in there, she's saying there's no process, there's no rule of law. It's determined by political issues. So I would imagine Sean McGovern, those political issues carry through in the prison system, and he may have been looked after.
Or he may have been on bail. We don't even know that.
We don't, because there's literally
it's just a blackout.
It's a blackout of
information. As soon as someone goes into that system out there. I was saying to one of the shows there this morning, it's like not like here, where there's a court case and the journalists rattle up and they go in and they report on it, or there's a hearing, and there's an open court and members of the public can go in and justice is carried out in public, in full public. Yeah. And the point of anybody reporting down in the courts is to tell the public what is happening in those open courts. It's just not like that. There is nobody, for us as a media organisation, we have nobody we can ring. We have nobody we can send an email to. We are just literally, it's complete blackout. And that's the way it has been since October. Bar our sources who have given us little tidbits of information or what they believe.
Yeah, but even then, I don't know if Irish officials were allowed to attend court hearings to do with McGovern. Certainly, it's not only that journalists can't attend. I think if a journalist in Dubai wrote about it, they probably would be committing a criminal offence. Yeah. So, I mean, look, what goes on in Dubai, I mean, it's politically dictated. A politician or a royal person in the royal family makes a decision and the law follows it in the aftermath. And that's why it's such a great success nonetheless for the Gardaí.
It is, yeah.
And for the political establishment in Ireland, because they had to cut through all of that red tape, that, patronage, that all of those things to get this done. And we've all heard that they were very nervous until that moment that plane took off. They were still very unsure that it was definitely going to happen, or, there was certainly a nervousness about it.
And of course, McGovern, when he does touch down after, I mean, it's kind of comical that we sent a plane that had to stop off twice to be refueled. But it's just the nature of our, what we have.
Well, I mean, this is one of the new planes, actually. I think was it C-295 or whatever. So these are basically maritime monitoring planes that were bought a couple of years ago. They are designed to move people, but their basic design.
It's for the nerds, obviously.
Yeah.
You're losing me now.
Well, it's their basic design is to monitor the Irish Sea, for a lot of it for drug trafficking and to be able to hover there. But so anyway, there you go.
So that was, but by the time he got back, the court has been told, and this is by his barrister, it's indicated that he may challenge the legality of the extradition and essentially the legality of the Special Criminal Court, or him being there in it.
Yeah, which we've seen again and again, of course.
Standard,
yes, it's
somewhat.
So I mean, some of these legal technicalities can be used in the Special Criminal Court, whether he was arrested, in Dubai in accordance with Irish law, whether he was extradited, all of that could be a factor. His defence solicitor didn't speak much. He said he would reserve his position in relation to the arrest, and he also asked for his next appearance to be by video link from Portlaoise Prison.
Which will be easier for everybody, because he's going to be a bit of a security nightmare. Speaking of Portlaoise Prison, they were expecting him, obviously.
They were, they would have got that tip off, I would imagine, a couple of days in advance.
Well, I don't think it would have been a tip off. I'm sure they were officially told he was going in there. But they, amazingly, even up to yesterday, they were still making changes. So they decided that they were going to house him, because Portlaoise isn't a remand prison, sure, it isn't. It's usually like for convicted criminals.
No, somebody like who's charged with murder, typically, especially if they're from Dublin, would be sent to Clover Hill. Clover Hill is a remand prison where people are awaiting trial, and the conditions are quite different. They get to, exercise more, they get more regular phone calls, all of that, and they're kept away from the prisoners that are convicted. So Portlaoise is not typically used. So
they have chosen to put him on the A5 wing in Cell 8, and his new neighbour is actually Yousef Palani. Now, Yousef Palani murdered 2 men in Sligo and badly injured another man. He was, I think he told Gardaí himself that, because they were homosexual, he had gone on some gay dating sites, and the levels of injuries to these men was horrific. There was those, of the 2 victims, one of them was decapitated and both were stabbed multiple times in a kind of an overkill, an anger kill. And he pleaded guilty and has been in that wing. He's there in the next cell, which is going to be, you would be a bit concerned about a guy like that. But anyway, obviously, there's systems in place to keep them apart. But the interesting thing was yesterday, and this tells us a lot about what risks the state believe that Sean McGovern is under. They were actually constructing a sort of a roof thing over part of the walkway where he would go to his exercise yard, because there was fears that a drone could be brought in. Now, that drone is presumably, the fear is that drone would have explosives on it, or he would be injured or shot, or...
Yeah, I mean, like who... They're assessing him, I would imagine, for risks from all sorts of angles.
Yeah.
Both from people that are in conflict with the Kinahan Cartel, but also, I would imagine, from people that be associated with the Kinahan Cartel as well, because according to the US Treasury Department, Sean McGovern has been Daniel Kinahan's point man.
For sure.
And therefore, you would imagine, as a result of that, poses the greatest risk to Daniel Kinahan's freedom now.
And interestingly, when you think back to the Regency trial where Jerry the Monk Hutch was placed on before the courts on a murder charge, and it's interesting because that was the only single charge that the court was able to consider. And in her judgment, Justice Tara Burns said pretty much that, had the state brought other charges against him, particularly in relation to firearms, that the outcome probably wouldn't have been him walking out free out of that court. But so that was there. But also, when you look at what happened, Jonathan Dowdall, because he was facing a murder charge alongside Jerry the Monk Hutch, and then he did a deal in the background to go witness, and he pleaded on a reduced charge, got less time in prison, went into the witness protection program, and is due to be released soon to be relocated out of the country. Of course, Daniel Kinahan's going to think that McGovern is possibly going to be tempted with that, or is he going to approach? Who knows?
Who knows? But certainly the prison service don't know that.
Yeah.
But they are going to have to assess that as a risk coming from, not just their opponents, but also,
And like some of the stuff sounds crazy, right? But it's like these are not normal people living in a normal world. They're high risk. They're willing to do anything. They are, anarchists, whatever. But they also have to consider his escape risk, even though he's in Portlaoise Prison. It's unheard of that somebody would escape out of the prison in more modern years. But at the same time, there was a plan to escape Noafal Fassi out of that prison after he was arrested here in Dublin in a Kinahan safe house. He was part of that Mocro mafia in the Netherlands, and he was wanted there. And the Netherlands, such was their belief that they were going to attempt to break him out, that the Netherlands sent a military aircraft into Ireland to move him immediately once that plan was uncovered. So
see, the resources of the Kinahan Cartel and their international reach put them in a whole other category from the other criminal organisations operating in Ireland. The fact that they have the resources, and we saw this during the feud, people were flown over, for example, the murder of Michael Barr, a man who had no connection with the Kinans or the Hutches or anything to do with Dublin, was flown over and paid to carry out that murder. So they have this capacity they have the resources to make it happen. Now, nobody is saying this is a likelihood, but the prison service are assessing all of these things and have to take them into consideration. Portlaoise Prison, some of the traditionally the army have been there full time, the Defence Forces. A lot of that obviously was to do with the paramilitary prisoners that were there. There's there's only a handful of them left at this point, and some of the security has been downgraded in terms of from the defence forces, but it's still a very high security prison, and it's built. It was built effectively with the idea of being able to contain a paramilitary army, the IRA at the time. So it is a very, very secure prison. So he will be in there. He's a remand prisoner. It's not the first time remand prisoners have ever been kept in there, but it is quite rare. I would imagine. And
that video link thing is very agreeable because, of course, I mean, even go back to the UK to Bomber Kavanagh when they were up on that gun plot. They said, I think in court it cost something crazy, like was it 40,000 a day?
40,000 a day to bring
him from the prison to the court because of the security. You would have to imagine McGovern would cost even more.
You would have to imagine. So, I mean, he'll have some conditions that are different because he is a remand prisoner in terms of access to lawyers and all of that. I imagine that would be facilitated in Portlaoise. But it's going to be a significant come down. I mean, obviously the charges that are laid against McGovern place him in directly, the accusation is that he's directly at the heart of, I mean, one of them is references directing a criminal organisation, which in this case would clearly be the Kinahan Cartel in an operation against that resulted in the murder of Niall Donald. So his status is clear, but look, it's
on McGovern as well, like he's not a lifelong friend of Daniel Kinahan's.
No.
He's a sort of a newcomer almost when you look at that inner circle, even some of who were named during the sanctions, Ian Dixon, a cousin, Bernard Clancy, a childhood associate,
from the Oliver Bond as well.
Who's been with him all the way along. Like McGovern was Liam Byrne and Bomber Kavanagh's man, and he really became tight with Kinahan around 2016 after the Regency. The state say here that he took on board some of the elements that the Kinahan or Daniel Kinahan wanted tidied up for himself, shall we say here. And he got that, open door into Dubai when he needed it in the end of 2016, went over there with the wife and kids. But there isn't that blood bond, is there?
No.
Because he's already been, in a way, it was seen as he was a little bit disloyal to Bomber and Liam Byrne. He sort of just, left them and all of a sudden was, didn't see this develop.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't, like, Daniel Kinahan had a group of people around him, some of them from the Oliver Bond, from his teenage years, and then others from the North Inner City that he obviously linked up with, back when he's 18, 19. They included people like Gary Hutch, Gary Finnegan. So that was his sort of core crew, people like Ross Browning. They were with him that whole way through. I mean, the first ever time I heard Sean McGovern's name mentioned was back in 2010. There was Bebo, if you remember Bebo, and they had pages up about Freddy's Rats, associating people with Fat Freddie Thompson, and they were putting up these Bebo pages, slagging off each other, and these were young members of the Ratican gang, and Sean McGovern was named there as another one of. There was loads of these young lads named, some of them that people like Paul Gray, who's been a target of CAB as well, but he was just another one of those young fellas running around Crumlin, a far lesser light than any Liam or David Byrne or Graham DeWitt Whelan. Just another mention of him. That was in 2010, but in the next 4 or 5 years, the Byrne organised crime group, as it was, really, started making huge money and became such a dominant force in the drugs trade in Dublin. And McGovern rose very steadily and continued to rise up that ladder. His real associates at that time were people like Liam Bop Rowe, obviously Liam Byrne as well. But he must have had
David Byrne was actually like one of his best buddies.
Yeah, I mean, and they.
But think about it, because McGovern not only rose up the business ranks, but he also ended up almost an honorary member of that Byrne family. Such was his loyalty, and they opened the doors to him. I mean, he was the closest. He even lived nearby to the Byrne parents, the late Jaws and Sadie Byrne. And I only mean one of them is late, as in James Jaws Byrne. Sadie's still alive there. But, they lived in a kind of, around one another, which gave them a bit of safety. And Sean McGovern is right in the heart of that. He's in that family as well as being in the business.
Yes, and as we go through the 2010s, he's obviously involved in a business called LS Active Car Sales with Liam Byrne. He's registered as a director. The guards have gone to court and said that was being used as a money laundering operation effectively. And when we get to 2017...
at which point we believe he's based in Dubai and he's not coming back to Ireland.
He certainly has left Ireland and has never returned since. But we did have images that we published of him meeting with Bomber Kavanagh in the UK, in a car park in the UK, after James Mulvey, another associate, is being extradited from Lithuania, and he's meeting with James Mulvey's dad, and he's in the company of Bomber Kavanagh. That's in April 2017. So I'd say that's the last, up until this week, the last time he's been.
And at this point that he's meeting with Bomber, when James Mulvey's been extradited back facing old charges, but nonetheless, Mulvey has to be kept quiet, doesn't he, at that point?
He has
and is McGovern sent as Daniel Kinahan's messenger from Dubai to meet with Bomber to make sure, and to meet with Mulvey's father. Was there something said under bugging then?
Well, there was something said that effectively they were meeting with James Mulvey's dad and letting it known that they wanted to see court documents and having all that information. But I suppose at that point it shows you McGovern certainly is also acting to an extent, at least as Bomber Kavanagh's right-hand man. And when there's lots of people have ended up in Dubai over the years, as the Hutch Kinnan feud, the policing operation gets tighter and more get arrested. Many people left Ireland one way or another, people like Trevor Byrne, and they weren't all taken into the open and welcoming arms of Daniel Kinahan. But it's a very different story for McGovern when he lands in Dubai. There's other people have gone over there and not got the treatment he got. It is believed that he was put up in an apartment that Daniel Kinahan had previously been living in one of the most exclusive real estate areas in the world. And he's looked after to a whole different level.
So it remains to be seen as well if his partner, Anita Freeman, returns now to Ireland, or if she stays in the Emirates.
Yeah, I mean, do you get health insurance, I suppose, as the partner of Sean McGovern, if you know what I mean? Or
do you feel secure, or do you still have, the
financial and emotional support of the people that are there?
Or the welcome there? I mean, was he on a residency visa? He was on something to be able to stay that long out there. And that he's been extradited. Do they, throw her out too? God knows. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on that development, I suppose, over the coming months. But it's big news, like, for the country and for us train spotters. This is big news. And like Daniel Kinahan, he was kind of the last buffer zone between the state of Ireland and Daniel Kinahan. He was the one that they were going to use as the tester pilot to see could they get him home. His was very clear cut with that charge, that murder charge, which has been in place since 2022. Obviously, further work has gone on, and these other charges have been put to him as well. You're showing your hand a little bit by getting him back, but you're also testing the path. And Daniel Kinnan has to be worried for a number of reasons, not least that, is his friendship with Sean McGovern strong enough to withstand any temptation that might be put in his way of being more useful to the state as a witness. A file has gone to the DPP for seeking a murder charge for Daniel Kinahan, and there's no consideration in that file of McGovern. We're sort of, talking in a speculative way here, but like Kinahan is going to be feeling a bit sick, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you go back to the detained in Dubai comment, and I think it's just so correct.
Yeah.
That she basically says, and I'm paraphrasing, that, there's so much bad publicity around this guy that they've just decided that they'll get a bit of sort of reputation washing by extraditing him. I think one of the huge problems for Daniel Kinahan is that this is an international news story. This is not just something that's being carried in the Irish media. The fact that Sean McGovern has been extradited has been carried in newspapers across the world. And that means that there is a benefit to the Dubai authorities to extradite Daniel Kinahan. It will look like it will give them kudos, and they have.
And let's give it's the human rights lawyer Rada Sterling, who is she's the CEO, I think.
Yeah, she runs it.
Dubai, and she makes these statements, and she's very outspoken.
Yeah,
she's very brave in her commentary around all of this. So just wanted to give her a shout out.
Yeah. Very good.
Just in case she's listening.
Yeah,
you called her.
Sorry, I apologise, Miss Sterling.
There was one other name I was going to root for there that we couldn't bring to our heads, but I'll think about it again.
Okay.
Somebody else who needs to be name checked. Go on, you're not in trouble.
No. Well, I'm always in trouble to some extent.
You're not in trouble. No, we went back to it, and I just thought I'll just give her name.
Okay. No, exactly. So I mean, what she's basically saying is that the Dubai, for him to be extradited, it's a political decision that they have made, and they've made that calculation on the basis that there's too much bad publicity to keep him, and there's a wave of good publicity to be got for him to be gone. In particular, because the EU, the US. And Interpol have been at them again and again about money laundering and about allowing these fugitives from justice to use Dubai as a base to wash their money. There's become this sort of stench of bad publicity around the place. The UAE is awash with money at the moment, and they probably don't need that money like they did. And she is saying they've basically made this calculation, nothing to do with the rule of law, but just on the basis that this will do them good to extradite them.
To quote Rada Sterling, she actually says more often these extraditions she's talking about are these extraditions from the UAE. She says they're rarely the result of impartial legal proceedings. And to quote, more often they are part of political or diplomatic bargaining, quid pro quo arrangements that have little to do with justice. This makes it incredibly dangerous for anyone with business disputes, political enemies, or public profiles that might make them a target. Yeah. So, while it's... so it's not good for anyone, is what she's saying.
Yeah, but it is. Look, it's still a diplomatic and policing success for Ireland. They've managed to get somebody that needs to come before the courts in Ireland for very serious criminal offences. They've managed to make this happen, and it hasn't been an easy road. They've had to be really patient, really persistent. They've signed, obviously the government has signed a bilateral treaty now, but also the Gardaí have basically gone over there, and they've managed to make it happen, and you have to congratulate them and hope that there is more to come.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll leave it for the moment.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.